I want to talk to Meppy because Meppy in Colorado has a really awesome question. Meppy, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I'm just right now, I am filling out your lower third thing. So while I do that, what did you want to talk about today?
I wanted to ask you what or if you have a potential solution to the hard problem of consciousness.
Nope.
Yeah, I figured as much.
But I think the
um,
conversation is useful to have, especially for viewers who don't understand it. So why don't you present it and we'll kind of kick it around for a bit.
well, there's a couple of different ways to present it.
And then just so Jonathan on the line can hear, Jonathan on the line, I do still want to talk to you, so don't hang up. Okay, sorry, Meppy.
No, you're good. Gave me a second to think.
Yeah.
So the hard problem of consciousness usually boils down to dualism or monism. So it's, does matter exist? Does mind exist? Do they both exist? You know, these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it's related to the things we think, the way we experience, the qualia that we have.
Oh God, that is the one word that makes me cringe more than most other words is qualia. So, okay, we can't bring too many more definitions or it's going to get really, really confusing for people. But do you want to go with qualia or do you want to just use a word like experience?
Let's just use experience. You're right. That's probably a little easier to digest.
It's definitely, it'll definitely allow us to have a deeper conversation. So how would you phrase the hard problem of consciousness?
Without using hard definitions. It's,
Can I give it a stab?
Our experience. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I can give it a stab if you'd like.
Yeah, go for it. I don't really have like a good way to do it without bringing in like philosophical zombie or Mary's Room or something like that.
It's exactly what I'm going to do.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. So when we're talking about consciousness, when we're talking about experience, and this is just kind of an explainer. And by the way, people who are watching who are more educated than I am, if I mess up, please say so in the comments. Let me know. That way I can correct myself. But the way that I understand it, it's a conversation about something that people refer to as qualia. Qualia can roughly be described as experience, right? So, I had so many of them. Who was it who said, "What is it like to be a bat"?
Oh gosh.
It starts with an N, and I'm losing it, but I'll read in the live chat if somebody can let it. I totally forget. But the idea is that we can understand how bats' physiology work. We can understand why and how they fly, but we can never truly understand the experience of being a bat. And so that experience, that qualia, is something that has gotten a lot of really kind of fluffy and difficult to define edges. And I think that's part of why we're having an issue here, is because it's so fluffy that people try and stick in religious, superstitious concepts into it. And it's tough to parse. But in that way, right, we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about qualia, we're talking about the part that experiences a thing, right?
Exactly.
And people will say, well, the brain goes through the process and the soul would be the mechanism that processes the experience. And I think that experience is just that. It's the process of the thing happening. And that said, people were trying to use qualia to back up this idea of mind-body dualism, that there is a separate, ghost in the machine, that a soul must be, for some reason piloting. People would point towards qualia about it, and then you get to Chalmers. And I know Chalmers was the one who said, well, what if you have somebody who doesn't have a soul, but their body is still acting, and you just have zombies? How do you determine who has a soul and who doesn't have a soul? But how do I solve the hard problem, man? Nagel,
Yeah.
Thomas Nagel from the million people in the live chat, because I have an incredibly smart live chat. You guys are incredible. Anyway, I think the problem is we have this entire suite of things that we call consciousness, and we're trying to treat it as a singular thing. And that's a problem. I feel like consciousness as a concept is something that we can interact with, and it's a useful word. But when we want to break it down into deeper parts, we need to use different words. We need to use different language. If we want to talk about understanding, communication, and the different parts of it, which include encoding and decoding that information, when we're talking about intent, if we break it up into smaller pieces, we can probably have those individual conversations. But when we wrap it all under the umbrella of consciousness, we're boned, man. I don't see any useful way forward.
I want to disagree.
I know you do. I do too.
Yeah, like I kind of hold to a form of neutral monism. Okay. So it's like there's the physical stuff, there's the mental stuff, but there's this other thing out there that they both relate to. Mm-hmm. It's a third substance, if you will, like energy, which is typically what I boil it down to.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess for me, substance doesn't really fit in the conversation for me.
Yeah, it's a little bit more philosophical, like kind of like platonic substances and things like that, platonic objects, and
that's why. That's why. Because if we're talking about energy, I understand how electricity works. I understand how radio waves work. I understand how there's a spectrum, and the more intense that spectrum is, the more you can do really wild things like nuke a burrito, and that lower on that spectrum, you have the visible light. And because that is something that I'm seeing, understanding, and interacting with in the world, and there's more than there's a world of evidence that show that ontologically energy, light, and things like radio waves exist. I wouldn't call it a third substance. I wouldn't even know what a second substance is. There's just those things that exist, and those things that only exist as concepts, and that's about it.
Yeah. So I don't really know how to go forward with that. I don't take this turn.
But here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that people are going to listen to this, and they're going to go, "What the hell were Eric and Meppy talking about?" And maybe it can spark interest in people looking into it and discovering and learning and growing, because I'm under no illusion that I'm, a particularly smart person. I'm just really, really into this subject. And I think that, and I think that there are incredibly smart people who are watching who may be able to do more with it, and I hope they do. So I find value in it. But when you're talking about solving the hard problem of consciousness, did I give a satisfactory answer, or did I go on to an entirely different trail? Because I don't want to leave that question unanswered.
Oh, no, you answered it in the very first thing you said.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't think there really is an answer either, and it's all just us guessing. So.
I think it's worse than that, because I don't think that any guess would be useful, because, like I said, it's treating an entire suite of things like a singular object. And I think I would go so far as to say that it's fallacious. And I'll tell you why. Okay. I think interacting with that concept in that way is fallacious, because you are dealing with the fallacy of composition. What is true of an individual part is true of the whole. If I rip a steering wheel off a car, I don't have a smaller car. You need all of the parts for it to be a car. But I can burn, if I say, can a car burn? And I burn the seats, those will burn, but the the metal shell won't. And so me saying cars can or can't burn based on those individual components really doesn't help, you know? And so I think that when we're dealing with consciousness and we're saying what is true of these individual parts also needs to be true of the whole, and it doesn't work, that's when we're scratching our heads and going, oh, crap, you know, I guess we're never going to get it. And it's because I don't think it should be treated that way.
And this is where I would bring up emergent properties. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly that. So
yeah, so like I think to get around the composition division fallacy, you would have to say that consciousness is an emergent property of a lower like level of energy, if you want to put it that way, or at least how I've been conceptualizing it.
Okay, well, what if we instead say that consciousness emerges through a wide series of individual processes, and that we
definitely,
and we call those individual processes together consciousness. Because when we talk about energy, it can get kind of wooey and weird. But if we view it for just what it is, right? You know, you have your central nervous system, you have, you know, your endocrine system, you have all of these different parts of your body and brain that come together for so many different useful reasons, and just consciousness kind of emerges from that. Then I think we can start to have useful conversations. But unfortunately, I think that in order to have those useful conversations, we need to throw out consciousness as a, you know, overall term that needs to be forced into boxes it shouldn't be in. Yeah.
Not sure I agree, but I'll think on it.
Do, and then let me know. And also, you know, feel free to join us in the Discord after the show, because if I can, what I've been doing is if I can download the episode right after, I'll hop into the Discord and I will do all the clipping and cutting and editing for the show, for the clips for people. And people have been really into it. But if I can't, then, you know, I can't. But yeah, if you get the chance, join us there.
I will.
All right. Hey, Meppy, thank you for calling in.
Yeah, not a problem. Have a good one.
You too. Okay. Wow. You guys, we've got more calls, but I just got to say, thank you. I had no idea that I was going to make it this far. I mean, I was hoping, but this has been really fun. This has been good.